Welcome back to the Business Infrastructure Audio Masterclass. Coming up in our next story is a veteran-owned, well-established, fast-growing food distribution company, and they're trying to figure out whether or not they should invest in opening up larger commercial space or should they work with the space that they already have. But before the owner can make a final decision, he has to first kind of overcome some mental and emotional hurdles that he's been dealing with. But before we get into that story and exactly how he reaches a conclusion, make sure you subscribe. That way you'll find out when all of our new videos come out, and be sure to click on that notification bell as well. Now, let's get into our next story featuring Clenard Smith.
For the past several episodes, you've heard the relatable stories of passionate entrepreneurs as they feverishly work to calm the chaos of fast growth. Each of those stories is followed by a do-it-yourself tutorial so that you can apply the concepts to your organization. We're now coming up on the final story of our audio masterclass on business infrastructure. It features Clenard Smith, a tenacious veteran who prides himself on conquering whatever business and life challenges are thrown at him. But he's blindsided when an unlikely enemy surfaces, threatening to undermine everything he's worked so hard to build. This is episode 192, Organized Chaos. The story of Clenard Smith and the flourishing food distribution company. Clenard Smith is the owner-operator of a wildly successful food distribution company. He attributes much of his success to the lessons he learned during his tenure in the military and to his first business, which failed. He prides himself on having a strategy for conquering whatever he sets out to achieve and has no problem following the rules, especially if they benefit him in the long term. Clenard desperately wants to take his company public, but recognizes he lacks the physical space to do so. The reality is he must address something personal, and his refusal to do so comes as a shock to both his family and his staff. One employee, seeing the self-destruction that is ensuing, arranges for a consultant to help. This consultant applies the Workspace logistics element of the Kasinu framework. Will it help Clenard win his latest battle? Or will he retreat? Driving from Chicago, Dolores Tran knew she chanced traffic being horrendous. That's why she intentionally chose to cross the state line from Illinois to Indiana on a route that would spare her of construction zones. She was on her way to Gary, Indiana, a city with a steadily declining population once touted as one of America's steel capitals. Dolores hoped she would arrive on time. She hated being late. Her phone's navigation app announced when she reached her final destination. She turned off a busy street and followed the well-marked signs for visitor parking. She parked her car at 10 o'clock a.m. on the dot. Before her was a two-story building that seemed to stretch an entire block. The second floor was noticeably smaller than the first floor. Grabbing her tablet, she walked briskly toward the building's front doors and placed her finger on a nearby buzzer to announce herself.
Hello, my name is Dolores Tran. I have a 10 o'clock appointment with Jackie Adams.
Although Dolores said she was there to see Jackie, she was actually there to conduct an initial consultation with Clenard Smith, the owner of this establishment. Suddenly, she heard the door unlock as she pushed her way in. Once inside, she signed in at the receptionist's desk and fastened her visitor's badge to her jacket's lapel. No sooner than Dolores sat down in the lobby did Jackie Adams appear. From the distressed look on her face, Dolores could tell Jackie had probably had a rough morning already.
Good morning. Hi, Dolores. How are you? Clenard wants to speak with you before I show you around.
They took the stairs to the second floor and immediately reached Clenard's assistant's office. It led to Clenard's office and the door was open. There he was, Clenard Smith, all 6 feet 2 inches of this 61-year-old military veteran whose reputation preceded him. At the sight of the two women, Clenard rose from the chair behind his desk, almost as if standing at attention to a commanding officer. The only thing missing was the hand salute. Before Jackie or Dolores could utter a word, Clenard motioned for them to step inside his office.
You must be Dolores.
As he extended his hand to shake Dolores's, he noticed she wasn't wearing a watch.
You're late.
Jackie had warned Dolores of Clenard's sternness, but she was still stunned. She didn't want this to be his first impression of her. She felt the need to defend herself.
Despite my best efforts, I walked into the building 5 minutes late. You know how that commute can be from Chicago to Gary.
Clenard could tell Dolores was about 5 feet 2 inches tall, and based on her last name, probably had Vietnamese heritage. He learned over the years how intimidating his taller frame and darker skin could be, so he softened his voice and offered a seat to Dolores. He looked at Jackie.
Give us about 30 minutes to talk. Then you can come back and give her a tour.
Jackie agreed and closed the door to his office on her way out. When Dolores sat on the soft leather chair in front of Clenard's desk, she realized that, in getting over her shock of their initial encounter, she completely overlooked the sheer beauty of his office. It reminded her of a museum. There were solid cherry wood bookcases with glass enclosures lining the 2 side walls of his office. On top of each bookcase was recessed lighting that illuminated figurines and framed quotes above the lighting. Dolores risked getting a crook in her neck, but she couldn't help looking up and around, trying to take in all of the artifacts in Clenard's office.
Intrigued by what you see?
I'm sorry, I couldn't help but...
No need to apologize.
Realizing she was wasting valuable time, Dolores returned her attention to Clenard, who sat across the desk from her. As she turned in her chair to face him, she noticed the quote, Veni Vidi Vici, carved into the center of the front panel on his desk.
I came, I saw, I conquered.
Do you know 90% of the people who come into my office for the first time have no idea what this means? You've ruined my icebreaker. I hear you and Jackie met at a Chamber of Commerce meeting a few months ago.
Yes, that's right. I was a panelist at a regulatory compliance event for small businesses. Jackie introduced herself to me. We talked for a few minutes on the phone since then. She told me that you have a big audit coming up a year from now.
Mm-hmm. So, Dolores, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm originally from Vietnam. I came to America with my parents and both sets of grandparents when I was a little girl. By the time I was in high school, I knew I wanted a career in public health. It was my way of combating the ignorance so prevalent about my family and the Asian American community at large. After college, I went on to work as a public health inspector for 35 years. I retired almost 2 years ago, but still wanted to be active in the public health space, so I decided to start my own consulting firm, helping small businesses in the food and beverage industry become compliant and audit ready. When I joined the chamber, I met other small business owners who told me about the Kasinu framework for business infrastructure. I saw this as a tool I could use to help my clients, especially when they started to grow quickly. And
there was a knock at the door.
Is it 10:30 already?
Yep, that's what it looks like. You'd know if you wore a watch.
Clenard smiled sarcastically at Dolores. Jackie opened the door to Clenard's office. The time seemed to fly by, and Clenard asked for a few more minutes to speak with Dolores. He found her story to be fascinating. Jackie knew this was a good sign, but she reminded him about another meeting at 11 a.m.
Fine. You see this, Dolores? I have all of these women telling me what to do. Let me at least treat you to lunch. Jackie, my next call should be over by noon. That should give you enough time to show Dolores everything, right?
Jackie nodded in agreement and escorted Dolores out of Clenard's office and formally introduced her to his assistant. A few minutes later, she gently knocked onto the doors of other offices to make more introductions.
As you can see, we don't have cubicles around here. We have glass cages.
Dolores noticed that the wooden doors of the offices on the second floor each had a large glass panel. They turned a corner and went down a few steps that led to a closed glass door with the words "break room" etched onto the glass. It was on the mezzanine level of the building and had a long rectangular shape.
Welcome to the Watchtower.
Jackie explained that the employees dubbed the break room the Watchtower because of the wall encased with a one-way mirror that overlooked the distribution and warehouse areas below on the first floor. Dolores walked up to the wall and peered out onto the first floor. She couldn't help but think of how the sight of the employees reminded her of Santa Claus's elves busily working in the toy shop, as depicted in many Christmas movies. Dolores continued looking out of the glass wall in amazement as Jackie talked.
Downstairs is where the magic happens. This room is like an observation deck. I remember when Clenard bought this building about 6 years ago. Originally, it had small windows, but Clenard worked with a contractor to have them and the wall removed and replaced with this durable one-way mirror made of bulletproof glass instead. Bulletproof glass? Yep, that's right, bulletproof. I guess you can say you can take the man out of the military, but you can't take the military out of the man. This is just one example of how extreme Clenard can get. It's also why I believe our turnover is so high. Don't get me wrong, he's a good person, he really is. He has a heart of gold, but sometimes he can be so extreme. God bless Sandy. I don't know how she put up with it all those years. Who's Sandy? Cassandra, his wife of 28 years. She passed away about 2 years ago. Cancer. It was hell on Clenard. To be honest, things haven't been the same since. Come, let me show you the real reason why we need your help.
Jackie motioned for Dolores to follow her out of the watchtower and back onto the second floor. They walked toward a set of solid wooden double doors. When Jackie unlocked the door, it creaked from not having been open in a long time, or at least not regularly. There was also a slight stench, an odor indicative of a room that was not receiving proper ventilation. Jackie turned on the lights. The room was huge. It spanned across the entire width of the second floor. Inside the room were what seemed to be endless stacks of boxes spread as far and as high as the eye could see. Some of them were labeled and others weren't. There were also loose papers strewn about, as well as several filing cabinets, cleaning equipment, and office supplies. Dolores even saw a treadmill in there.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Clenard's story. If you want to hear the full story and discover how you can also create a workspace logistics plan, then here's 2 things you can do. The first is buy my book. It's called Behind the Facade: How to Structure Company Operations for Sustainable Success. Clenard's story is featured in Chapter 7. If you want to actually see how to do the work that Clenard and the consultant he worked with did together, then the second thing you can do is sign up for the online Smooth Operator Masterclass. There, you'll see video demonstrations that will show you exactly how to create your own workspace logistics plan and prove once and for all your business's capability to deliver results at scale. You can do that at smoothoperator.courses. See you in the next video.